Bazheneyeva. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, distinguished experts and friends. I'm really very glad to see all of you here. And let me share the results of project implementation in Kazakhstan on teaching with ICH in Asian Pacific region. Therefore, talking about the steps of project implementation, we have decided jointly with UNESCO office in Kazakhstan, we decided to select the UNESCO associated schools for this pilot project. And we conducted the learning workshop from the 11th through the 15th of January, which also was the follow-up of the introductory meeting conducted on the 15th of December 2020, because it was very important for us to tell the teachers what's going to be the timelines of the project implementation, what's the plan of actions. And also we also showed interest to three teachers of different subjects, and also one member from the school management joined this project as well. During the training and after the training, the teachers were analyzing their curriculum, and upon analysis, they were taking the decisions on concerning the grade or, for example, the time or the element that might be ICH element that might be integrated into the teaching process. Then we were jointly discussing the partners who could have been involved into the implementation of this project. And we were discussing likelihood of availability of the teachers who are already using ICH in their teaching process. For example, if we take ICH, maybe we can invite the colleagues of our teachers teaching other subjects, as well as other experts and maybe parents for implementation of this project. And the implementation of the project itself, and devising the extracurricular events as well as the curriculum itself. Vanessa has already shown all the steps of how such projects should be implemented, and what concrete steps are supposed to be fulfilled. Every teacher picked up the grade and the time for the lessons, because as it has already been mentioned before, if we would have invited the experts, then it would have been necessary also to comply with their time schedule. And it was necessary to pick up an element, ICH element. And we were also recommending the elements that were also were considered to be the bearers of some ICH elements. So we conducted this element as well. And then we picked up the materials, and first of all, we mean the materials provided to us by UNESCO, and out of all pilot projects that have already been implemented before. Then we analyzed what literature will be required, video, audio materials, or other pedagogical materials. The teachers were working very diligently on this step. And I would like to note also that the management of the schools also supported us very much, and so that we could invite, for example, jewelers, musicians, the craftsmen who were producing musical instruments, depending on the selected ICH element, and depending on the topic. Talking about the numbers, as I have already mentioned, we selected three schools with three teachers and one representative of the school management. The total number of the trainees was 235, 111 girls and 125 boys. The number of schools that the number of lessons that we conducted in that pilot project was 20, and as a result, we also used the school Dostare and Zhirma Bir from the gymnasium school number 153. Let's take a look at how it happened. I would like to mention right away that in the course of the implementation of this particular project, we had various changes in the selection of the element, living heritage element, or in the to the approach to integration. But I would like to say that Dostar school decided to pick up this Shejere element even before that. And since all the teachers were pretty familiar with this element, and since they have decided that it will be very important for biology, history, and the Kazakh language, it will be very convenient to use Shejere elements as a cutting through element. And this is the reason for which they have decided to use and to work with this element. And then through the history of the family, the teachers were learning about the Second World War, the Kazakh and in the Kazakh language and literature. Thanks to Shezherez, they were learning more about the relationships between various families, and also they were conducted the debates, and then there was a presentation of their family trees. As you see, the the students were putting together the genetic trees, and they were integrating there the pictures of their relatives, and they made kind of banners. The second school, it's the school gymnasium number 8, into which the teachers of English, Kazakh, and history were participating. The English teachers decided to use the ICH as the main topic of the lesson, since different elements of ICH were analyzed typical for various communities in China, and they were discussing the traditional knowledge and advanced technologies. Then the teacher of Kazakh decided to use ICH as a pedagogical tool. And thanks to the learning of how to produce traditional jewelry, they were learning various proverbs and sayings, and conducted interviews with a practitioner and the parents. And the students of the 6th grade in its curriculum already have this topic. This is the reason for which it was pretty easy for them to arrange everything. And the ICH elements were actually an entry point to integrate the ICH into the educational process. History, the teacher of history also decided to pick up history as the subject of the lessons, because this topic was already approved in their curriculum, and they were talking about the traditions of producing Kazakh yurtas. And the teachers and the students were discussing the connections with the tangible culture, with the dwellings and objects, what skills are required for this. And the teachers try to model a yurt. Therefore, the school gymnasium number 8, unfortunately, during the implementation of this project, it was on quarantine. This is the reason for which all the lessons were conducted in online format. But as we see, it did not affect negatively on the involvement and interests of teachers and students. As you see, the students were conducting interviews with their children, and they were telling us stories about their family values, and included the idea of the value and the significance of ICH. And I would like to mention that when children were interacting with teachers or parents, usually we receive their free written consent. For example, if they wanted to record an interview with parents, even if some parents wanted to share their information, but they did not want to be video recorded, this is the reason for which we decided to take into consideration and show respect to their opinions. Therefore, all these concepts actually were based on the written consent of the participants. The next approach was developed by school number 153. The first teacher was the teacher of Uyghur language and literature. The second is the teacher of history, and the third one is the teacher of music. The first teacher of Uyghur decided to pick up the craft. For example, the production of cups from the pumpkins, and the students could actually learn about the traditional craftsmen and the oral traditions of Uyghurs history through the ICH, using or referring to various sacred places available in Kazakhstan. The ICH became also an entry point for learning more about ICH. Music, the teacher was using such elements of ICH as the legends and kui, and which are the elements of Uyghur and Kazakh peoples. And some of the events, it was possible to conduct them online and others offline. And therefore, talking about the semantic research, as I have already mentioned before, I would like to note that first of all, the teachers were very much involved, that they were very much interested, and they started learning more about this element. They started learning more and deeper about this element together with the students, and all the teachers also mentioned and noted increased interest to this in this element, and they have seen that any school knowledge can be very useful and can be applied in their practical everyday work. They were also interacting with the teachers and students from other grades who were not participating in the project, and they requested them. For example, during the lesson of the Kazakh language, they invited a student from the 11th grade who told them about kui and who played dombra. And since this student is coming from the family of Abay Kunanbayev, a very famous poet, Kazakh poet, and he also told about his shejere, which was really very interesting for the students. As you see here on the picture, you see the presentation of the students' projects, and one of the students managed to restore her genetic tree up to the 16th century. And what was really very interesting is that many students decided to establish connections with many other relatives who with whom they were not communicating before, who sometimes live on different continents. Therefore, the barriers of such ICH elements and the connection with them was enhanced. Talking about the semantic topic, it was the school event, and actually it is an annual event, which is usually conducted during in spring, because in spring everything is blooming and the life is renewed. And again, offline mode was available only for the low grade students, and the speakers decided to pick up in the framework of this festival a conference, scientific conference for the students of the primary school, and the students who were very much willing and expressed their willingness and desire to participate. They were interacting with the teachers of different subjects.
Когда девочка украшаются, какие рисунки наносятся, какой смысл это имеет, да? Преподаватель уйгурского языка.
Basically, once there was this lady student girl who decided to tell how to make a jug out of pumpkin. So basically, this young lady, she planted this pumpkin in her vegetable patch. She watched it to grow, then she knew what kind of definitions were used in Uyghur languages, how to call different stages of the pumpkin growth, and then they learned about those Well, basically, she also met the guy who was able to turn those beautiful pumpkins into nice jugs. So basically, he told her about the whole process. So they also invited the expert, some postgraduate student in chemistry, who commented on every performance and how
Saniya.
the plants. Saniya? Yes, I'm almost over. Almost over. Well, here you can see that children, they practically grew some of these plants and they actually asked their parents, grandparents, the members of the community, how to use these particular plants in the day-to-day life and what kind of medicinal properties those might possibly have. So they shared some of those recipes and some of the key challenges that they had. First of all, it wasn't really clear what were the specific deadlines because some of the events were planned, but then they were canceled because of the lockdown measures. So that is why this is probably the biggest problem. The next problem was that when the teachers they got used to the ICH concept, basically getting used to the ICH concept, the integration of ICH into the teaching process, and also understanding the principles of education and the spirit of global citizenship. It was really hard to draw those parallels, but the teachers overcame these successfully, and some feedback was collected from some of the school students. So basically, there are certain phrases on the screen, some quotes that were collected, some of the feedback from teachers. For the inspirational purposes for some of the other teachers, these would be great. This is it from my side. Should you have any questions, please write to me in chat. I'll be happy to respond.